Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me today because we have some very exciting General Hospital news to talk about, and it's definitely worth the wait. I'm telling you, the more I sit with what's happening on General Hospital, the more it lingers with me long after the episode is over. It's not just the drama anymore, it's the feeling behind it. And this whole situation with Willow, Jacinda, and those children, it just settles right into my heart in a way that's hard to shake. I keep picturing Willow not as some character on a screen, but as a woman standing in her own living room, trying to hold her world together with both hands. There's something about her lately that feels tighter, more guarded, like she's smiling when she has to, keeping things polite on the surface, but inside she's turning things over and over again, trying to make sense of what's safe and what isn't. And when I think about her decision to confront Jacinda, I don't see it as a bold move. I see it as something she almost had no choice but to do. Because when doubt gets into your heart, especially about someone being around your children, it doesn't just sit quietly. It grows. It whispers. It makes you question every little thing. Now, Jacinda, she's the kind of presence that makes everything feel uncertain. Not loud, not obvious, but complicated. And I keep going back to what happened with Drew. That situation with the ketamine, the way his reputation got dragged through the mud, you don't just forget that. Even if Willow says she's moved on, I don't believe for a second that she's erased it from her mind. A woman remembers who brought chaos close to her family. That kind of memory doesn't fade, it settles in. And here's what really gets me. This isn't just about the past. It's about what could happen next. Willow is looking ahead, trying to protect something fragile, because, let's be honest, things are already shaky. There's already tension, already questions, already people watching and judging. So when she thinks about Jacinda stepping into a role that could eventually look like mother in any way, that's not a small thing. That's the kind of thought that keeps you up at night. I couldn't help but think about that uncomfortable moment when Wiley asked that question right there in front of Chase and the social worker. Oh, I felt that in my bones. Kids don't filter things. They just say what they hear, and suddenly everything that was being kept quiet is right there in the open. Willow handled it smoothly, I'll give her that. She brushed it off like it was nothing, like kids say silly things, and moved on. But I've lived long enough to know moments like that don't just pass, they stay with you. They echo later when you're alone, when you're already unsure. And then there's that deeper fear, the one I think Willow doesn't want to admit out loud. The idea that Wiley and Amelia might actually like Jacinda. That right there, that's the kind of truth that stings. Because it's not about right or wrong anymore. It's about feeling replaced, even just a little. It's about wondering if your place in your children's hearts could shift without you even realizing it. I've seen that happen in real life, and let me tell you, it's never easy. You can be strong, you can be kind, you can do everything right, but when another person walks into that space, especially someone tied to their father, things get complicated real fast. And Willow knows it. That's why she's holding on so tightly. What makes all of this even heavier is that she's not just protecting her children, she's protecting her identity. Being their mother isn't just a role, it's who she is at her core. So when something threatens that, even indirectly, it feels personal, deeply personal. And I can't shake this feeling that when Willow finally stands in front of Jacinda, it's not going to be calm or simple. It's going to carry everything: fear, memory, doubt, maybe even a little bit of anger she hasn't fully admitted yet. Not loud, not explosive right away, but steady, like a storm building slowly over the water. Because in a place like Port Charles, things like this don't just resolve nicely. They stretch, they twist, they test people in ways they didn't expect. And right now, I feel like Willow is standing at that point where she has to decide, does she trust what she sees or does she trust what she feels? And if you ask me, a mother usually follows her gut. Even when it leads straight into conflict, I'm going to be honest with you, the more I sit with everything unfolding on General Hospital, the more I feel like I'm watching something slow burning and dangerous. The kind of story that doesn't explode all at once, but instead tightens little by little until nobody can breathe easy anymore. And right at the center of it all, I keep coming back to Willow. Not just what she's doing, but why she's doing it. Because on the surface, sure, it looks like she's just being protective. A mother watching another woman get close to her children, raising her guard, asking questions, that's natural. Anybody who's lived long enough has seen that kind of situation play out, but when I really sit with it, I can feel something deeper, something more complicated stirring underneath. It starts with Michael and Jacinda. Now, that relationship, it's shifting, and it's not subtle anymore. There's a weight to it now, a kind of steadiness that tells me this isn't temporary. This is heading somewhere real. And when a man like Michael starts building something serious, especially with someone who's already being pulled into his world, his business, his family, his daily life, that's when everything around him starts to change too. And I keep thinking about how entangled it all is with Nina and Crimson. That situation alone could carry a whole story. Nina being in a position where she has to bring Jacinda in, give her a real job, watch her prove herself. Oh, you just know that's not sitting right with her. She might be composed on the outside, but inside, I imagine that tension just simmering. Still, Jacinda doesn't fall apart under it. If anything, she adapts, she learns, she steps into the role. And when Nina allows her to mentor Charlotte, that's when I leaned back and thought, well, now this is getting layered, because Nina doesn't make moves without thinking ahead. Bringing Charlotte into Jacinda's orbit, that's not just about work, that's about influence, about shaping connections, about keeping a quiet hand in how things unfold. But no matter how much is happening around them, everything keeps circling back to Willow's perspective. Because for her, this isn't about business or strategy, it's about her children, her place in their lives, and what might be slipping out of her control. The more she sees Michael and Jacinda growing closer, the more her thoughts start running ahead of her. Not just they're dating, but what if they get married? And once that thought takes hold, it doesn't stop there. It becomes, what does that mean for custody? What does that mean for my children's daily life? What does that mean for me? And I can feel how that fear starts shaping her actions. Now, the way she confronts Jacinda, that's where things turn from emotional to strategic. Because Willow doesn't just walk in uncertain, she walks in prepared. She brings up wily. She brings up influence. And most importantly, she brings up that moment, that uncomfortable, messy moment when Wiley asked what a prostitute was. And here's the thing that really stayed with me. Willow knows the full truth. She knows Michael and Jacinda didn't say that word. She knows it came from Olivia, just a careless moment that got overheard, but she chooses to frame it differently. Not as an accident, but as a sign, a warning, a reason to question Jacinda's presence around her children. That's not just emotion, that's intention. And when she lays that at Jacinda's feet, I can almost feel the shock ripple through Jacinda, because she didn't even know it happened. Michael never told her. And in that one moment, everything shifts. The issue isn't just about the children anymore, it becomes about trust between her and Michael. Why didn't he tell me? What else hasn't he told me? You don't even have to say those questions out loud. They just appear, quiet but persistent. And Willow, she leans into that space, not loudly, not aggressively, but carefully. She introduces the idea that Michael keeps things to himself, that he did it before, that maybe Jacinda doesn't know him as well as she thinks she does. Now that right there, that's where the real damage begins. Because doubt doesn't need to be proven, it just needs to be planted. And I can't help but notice how controlled Willow is in all of this. She's not losing her temper. She's not making a scene. She's choosing her words, choosing her timing, choosing exactly where to press. And that tells me this isn't just fear anymore, it's a decision. A quiet, determined effort to shift the direction of things before they go too far. But at the same time, I don't see her as cold or cruel. I see a woman who feels like she's running out of options. A woman who sees a future forming that she didn't choose. One that could redefine her role in her children's lives. And instead of waiting for that future to arrive, she's stepping in, trying to reshape it while she still can. What makes this whole situation so powerful, so hard to look away from, is that every single person here believes they're justified. Michael is moving forward, building something new. Jacinda is trying to find her place, to prove she belongs. And Willow, she's holding the line, protecting what she believes is hers to protect. But the closer Michael and Jacinda get, the more pressure builds on all sides. Because once marriage becomes a real possibility, once shared custody turns into something more permanent and structured, there's no more room for uncertainty. everything becomes defined. And I'll tell you what, I feel deep down this isn't going to settle quietly. The seeds Willow is planting, they're going to grow. Maybe not right away, maybe not in obvious ways, but they're there now. In Jacinda's mind, in the space between her and Michael, and once that space starts to widen even just a little, it doesn't take much for everything to start pulling apart. And that's the part that keeps me watching, keeps me thinking long after it's over, because this isn't just about one confrontation. This is about a shift in relationships, in trust, in identity, and in a place like Port Charles, once those things start shifting, there's no telling where they'll finally land.